First up, developments on the political front this week dominated our news coverage. The state legislature convened for its first annual fiscal session. The U.S. Senate race firmed up, and because of that, the number of open seats for Congress in 3 of the state's 4 House districts brought about a flurry of activity and speculation. Joining me to talk politics is Talk Business contributor Jason Tolbert. His conservative blog, The Tolbert Report, keeps an eye on a host of political developments. Jason, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start first with the 3rd District Congressman John Boozman's finally in the U.S. Senate race. We got, I would say, the top 3 GOP contenders seem to be Boozman, State Senator Gilbert Baker, former State Senator Jim Holt, maybe not necessarily in all that order. But there are 8 candidates, all told, claiming that they're going to run for the U.S. Senate. Does anyone else seriously threaten for the GOP Senate nomination?
Well, I think Boozman is clearly the front runner at this point. I've seen an internal poll floating around that shows him way ahead of the rest of the field. If those numbers hold up to be true, the question is going to be, will there be a runoff? And if there is a runoff, I think you're right. I think Holt and Baker are both jostling for which one will come in second place to challenge him in that. But it's possible that Boozman may actually get enough to avoid that altogether.
I would suspect that you probably would have to have a few more of those 8 candidates drop out for that to happen, don't you think?
It could be. With 8 candidates in the race, it'll be difficult for somebody to pick up 50%. The question is, how many votes can Boozman pull in from his home district, from the 3rd District, and how much of the primary vote will come from his home base?
Yeah, and if you look at past history, you're looking at maybe as much as 50% of the GOP primary vote coming out of the 3rd Congressional District. Let's talk about, do you expect it to be a bruising primary campaign among the Republicans, or do you think everybody's going to kind of play nice and focus their attacks on incumbent Democrat Senator Blanche Lincoln?
Well, for people to play nice, they'll have to start playing nice, because they aren't playing nice right now. You've already had Baker characterize Boozman as being a Washington insider, criticizing him for some of the earmarks that he got approved. Jim Holt has come after him, saying that he's moving us incrementally towards socialism. So the question is not, will it get bruising? The question is, how bruising will it get?
All right, lots of new names and a lot of no names in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd District congressional races. I kind of see these races as being pretty ripe for a self-funded candidate to do well, because you got a short time period to organize, you've got the power of TV and radio, although there aren't a lot of self-funded candidates in the race at this time. Do you think that the advantage goes to the person who raises the most money in these congressional races?
Well, you're right. It's a very interesting dynamic. Take the 2nd Congressional District, for example. On the GOP side, that race, both Tim Griffin and Scott Wallace have been in the race for quite some time. It's kind of panning out where Griffin is becoming the front raiser. He's raised about 10 times the funds that Scott Wallace has. On the Democrat side, with Snyder suddenly announcing he's not going to run for re-election, that opens the door for a flood of different Democrat candidates to rush in. And it's really going to be a sprint for them to the finish. So whoever can get on TV, can get on radio, can get their message out there quickly, can spend a lot of money real fast, is probably going to be who wins that race.
Of course, if Lieutenant Governor Bill Halter gets in, which is there's speculation he may still do that, he may make that a very expensive race for some of the other candidates that are in there now.
Sure, he comes in with a lot of name ID that he already has from his previous races. So the other candidates will really have to get on TV, really have to get out there in order for people to know who they are.
Great dynamic. We'll watch that. Now, the state legislature was in session this week. As expected, it was a pretty boring session. What's the most interesting development you saw unfold this week?
Well, you know, I wrote about a month ago that a boring fiscal session would be a good thing. I think all the state legislatures must have read my column and done that. It made it a very boring session. Not a lot's happened. The most exciting thing was probably just the session being gavelled in. It was on the internet for the first time. Governor Beebe gave a very short speech, but towards the end of it, I thought it was interesting that he pointed out that he was a legislature. He said he identified more with the legislature than any previous governor or any future governor. Very bold statement, and sort of a warning to the legislature, I thought, to go along with what he wanted to do.
Yeah, well, they bucked him a little bit on that, so maybe he didn't get all that. Well, to me, the most interesting thing that I kind of noticed this week is, although there's not supposed to be any campaign fundraising going on the House side at least, there seemed to be a lot of chatter in the halls, and I think there are a lot of commitments being put together for fundraising maybe once the session ends.
Sure, there's probably a lot of, hold that check, don't send it to me right now. Maybe in March might be the best time to send that.
All right, Talk Business contributor Jason Tolbert of the Tolbert Report, thanks as always.
Appreciate it.